Good afternoon, everyone. Hope that all of you had a good lunch and welcome to our Hackattack 2022 webinar series brought to you by Jewel Digital Ventures and 137 Ventures in partnership with ASNB. Today we have with us Tengku Arif Mubin, who will be speaking to us on the topic of accelerating the growth of the digital economy in Malaysia. Mubin is currently the lead for fintech and accelerator as well as venture building in Malaysia Digital Economic Corporation (MDEC), an agency under the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia, with a 26-year track record of successfully leading the ICT and digital economy growth in Malaysia. Mubin specializes in business development as well as stakeholder engagement and is responsible for creating value through partnerships and collaborations with ecosystem stakeholders, ranging from startups, corporates, to government agencies and ministries. Without further ado, I would like to bring Mubin on stage.
Hello, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Wayan, for the kind introduction. Uh, okay, hold on. Let me just share my screen first. Okay. All right. As per introduced by Wayan, my name is Mobin. So within AMDAC, I lead the FinTech Accelerator and Venture Building team. So under the purview of AMDAC, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, we are a government agency under the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia. So AMDAC has been around for the past 26 years, right? And meaning that for the past 26 years, we have driven and also contributed to the growth of the GDP in Malaysia. And to date, as of 2021, the digital economy has contributed to over 22% to the national GDP, right? So myself, I am from a division called Ecosystem Development. But before I dive into that, let me just share with you some interesting highlights in terms of why Malaysia is the heart of digital ASEAN, right? So Malaysia's aspiration of being the heart of digital ASEAN or a digital hub within the ASEAN region is because of the strengths and benefits that we have as a country. So population-wise, I think this is a well-known fact that we have quite big population of 32 million. Our GDP in 2020 was over 350 billion US dollars, and we have contributed over 22.6% of the national GDP, as well as a very high penetration rate, right? So, but Malaysia, apart from the statistics you see on your left side, we are also a country that is very rich in terms of culture, in terms of food, as well as tradition, right? And when it comes to running businesses, in particular, those factors are taken into consideration as well. So this is where I would like to further elaborate in terms of why Malaysia specifically, and why Malaysia has been chosen as the destination for MNCs or global businesses to set up here, right? So Malaysia has a strong business continuity plan. Malaysia has a very mature and innovative digital ecosystem infrastructure. We are very diverse in our languages. Our talent pool are very digitally savvy, as per what has been showcased by today's participants for the hackathon. And then the cost of doing business in Malaysia is comparatively cheaper compared to countries in the region, as well as the government agenda of expanding the digital focus to nationwide, not just in Klang Valley, not just in urban areas, right? So I'm not sure if everyone is aware of Malaysia Digital, but let me take you a few steps back and give you a bit of context on this one. So MDEC has been the guardian of MSC, Multimedia Super Corridor, which was established back in the 1990s, right? And this MSC is a policy to push and also develop the ICT sector back then. But as we have been around for the past 26 years, the ecosystem has grown, the country has grown, the businesses has developed and changed as well. So MDEC has taken a step forward in terms of revamping the previous MSC into the current Malaysia Digital, right? So under this Malaysia Digital strategy, we have a 5-year target of bringing in 50 billion ringgit worth of investment to Malaysia, creating 50,000 jobs, getting 50 Fortune Tech 500 companies to set up in Malaysia, and having 5 global unicorns in Malaysia. And as of to date, you already have one, which is Custom, but there are a few more in the pipeline that will be reaching the unicorn status soon as well. And under the Malaysia digital sector tech focus areas, we have 9 key focus areas that we are focusing on, right? So it ranges from agriculture, services, cities, health, finance, trade, content, tourism, as well as Islamic digital economy. Excuse me. So some of you might be wondering why Islamic digital economy and what is Islamic digital economy. So the reason for this is because Malaysia has a very unique positioning when it comes to Islamic economy per se, right? Malaysia has been number one in terms of Islamic finance, and we have been in the top three to top five in terms of all the other sectors related to the Islamic economy, ranging from halal fashion, halal food, Muslim friendly fashion wear, so on and so forth. And this has put us in a very prominent position to actually be the leading country or leading industry in terms when it comes to Islamic, right? So apart from the focus areas, we also focus on the enablers, which are the likes of AI, blockchain, cloud and data center, cybersecurity, drone tech, IoT, RPA, as well as VR and AR. Okay. So MDEC as an agency, we have always gotten this question, right? What exactly is MDEC, or what does MDEC do? And the answer to that can be a bit complicated because we are the champions when it comes to digital economy, meaning that when it comes to digital, everything is under MDEC. So as you can see on the slide currently, it ranges from foreign tech talent facilitation, incentives and support, policy, regulatory advocacy, grants, dynamic startup ecosystem, and ecosystem support as well as access, right? So we work closely with our partners, like Wayan mentioned earlier, ranging from the startup side, private, government ministries, and it's not just confined to local. We work with regional and global partners as well to provide more opportunities for our local tech talents and local tech startups to tap on the global opportunities. So zooming in into this division that I am in currently, so under ecosystem development division, so this division takes up the whole chunk of MDEC. The reason being is that we look at 4 key areas, right? The supply side, the demand side, national high impact projects, as well as the enabler side. So the supply side is where the startups, the talents, the ideas that you have, for example, this hackathon, all of you have your own ideas in terms of how to solve the problems that or the challenges that ASNB and also JDV has provided for you, right? So our role in MDEC under the supply pillar is actually to help you foster, to help you nurture those ideas to become real ideas, right? Scalable ideas, feasible ideas as well. On the demand side, so this is where we have a team that looks at digital adoption. So, for example, SMEs or even let's say the auntie that sells curry puff or nasi lemak, so by the corner of the street, how do we get them to adopt digital? It can be either digital payment, digital logistics, right? Delivery, on-demand order, anything, right? National high impact projects. So these are big scale projects that we run under MDEC's purview to benefit the whole country, right? Not just for government or for just ministries, but the entire ecosystem. Under enabler, so this is more focused towards providing digital talents as well as customer management platform for us to be able to better serve the industry. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have 4 pillars, and under these pillars, we have separate teams, right? So, the first one is tech ecosystems and globalization, whereby we polish and also groom local grown startups to contribute to the My Digital aspirations, as well as the digital creative content team. So, the two are similar but different. Reason being is that when it comes to creative content, it's a separate breed, right? There's a lot more animation, there's a lot more esports, so it's not your typical tech businesses that run. Under demand, as I mentioned, we have digital adoption. Under high impact, we have digital trade and also DE Rantau. So DE Rantau is a digital nomad program that MDEC is running. Under enabler, we have digital talent to help upskill and reskill talents and customer portfolio management, as I mentioned earlier. So myself, I am parked under the tech ecosystems and globalization team. And under this team, we have another three sub teams, which are the digital industry development, scale up development, as well as Islamic digital economy, right? So, under the digital industry development, we have a lot of initiatives and programs that we run. For example, we have a team that runs startup and community building, whereby we have programs such as Malaysia Digital Hub, Accelerator Partnerships, Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Program, FinTech Booster, as well as Idea Kita. And then under ecosystem innovation and growth, so this is a team that looks at tech application and POCs for companies such as the new ones. If yourselves you are looking at setting up a company and you're looking for POCs to run, this is where we can help you as well. Under our MDEC Innovation Exchange, which is essentially a corporate innovation program, as well as our vertical ecosystems team, which focuses on POCs in the sectors of IoT, BDA, and AI. Right? So zooming in to each of those programs. So Malaysia Digital Hub essentially is a certification granted by the government of Malaysia to co-working spaces. Why? Because these co-working spaces fulfill the 6 criteria listed here. And the idea behind Malaysia Digital Hub is actually to somehow replicate the idea of Silicon Valley, right? So when Silicon Valley was first discovered, it was an accidental happening, right? It wasn't something that was intentional, it wasn't something that was planned. So realizing that it's nearly impossible to replicate something like Silicon Valley, MDEC, we've decided, okay, there's so many co-working spaces in Malaysia, there's so many startups in these co-working spaces. So given that these co-working spaces are providing the community support, the tech support, the funding support as well, so we are working together closely with 9 of the MDH operators, as you can see on the right side, to actually provide more opportunities for startups that are housed in those co-working spaces. And the next one is Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Pass. So this is essentially a visa program for foreign tech entrepreneurs. So there's 2 types of passes, a 1-year pass and also a 5-year pass. So a 1-year pass is if a new entrepreneur who's, let's say, in Singapore, India, Australia, they want to set up in Malaysia, they want to expand, they want to see how is it operating in Malaysia, they can subscribe to this pass. And the 5-year pass is for businesses that have already been established with a track record, who wants to expand their business into Malaysia, right? So Idea Kita is a relatively new program that was just launched this year. So the objective behind this program is actually to create and develop 200 new startups, right? And this is to align with the goal of Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint of having 5,000 startups in Malaysia by 2025. And we have run 5 road shows across the country, actually, in Klang Valley, Penang, Johor, Sabah, and Sarawak. And currently, we are in the midst of the ideation bootcamp, whereby we are helping these participants to validate their idea, coming up with MVPs, as well as providing them with corporate mentors, as well as industry experts. So under Accelerator Partnerships, this is something that we do on a partnership basis, and it ranges not just for accelerators, for hackathons, incubators, venture studios, pre-accelerators, as well as accelerators. So the reason for this is because accelerators, hackathons, incubators, so on and so forth, they play a very critical role in terms of helping to validate ideas, right? Helping the participants to come up and refine their ideas better, to make sure that the ideas are feasible, the ideas are commercial, right? And then at the end of it, you want to make sure that these companies or these teams or participants, they have the support from the private sector as well as from the government to actually be able to build up their business. So that's why, as you can see at the bottom, there's 2 parts of the support. So one is during the program as well as post-program, right? So during the program, we actually help in terms of industry mentorship, office hours, networking, funneling, amplification, as well as post-program via mentoring, pilots, funding facilitation, as well as market access. Okay, so FinTech Booster. So this is a very niche program, and you might be asking why is it just for FinTech, right? So the reason for this is actually FinTech is one of the most highly regulated areas or sectors in the business, right? And this FinTech Booster program is actually a collaboration in conjunction with Bank Negara Malaysia to provide FinTech startups with resources to enable and accelerate them to be more market ready and as well as investment ready. So there's three pillars to this program. One is in terms of legal and compliance, business model, as well as technology. Right. Currently, we are in the midst of revamping the program to make sure that the content is much more seamless and much more accessible for everyone. So as for Mix earlier, as I mentioned, it's a corporate innovation program, and we how we do this is we engage with corporates, and then we identify or we uncover what's their problem statements, what are their challenges, and from there we actually funnel startups or even companies that are providing those kind of solutions to collaborate or even get business deals with these corporates. Under big data analytics, so this is something very niche as well, and the reason why is because when we speak with a lot of companies, it's something that a lot of companies are looking at, right? Because they have all this data. It can be either banks, either plantation corporates, manufacturing, any sort of organization. You have so many data in hand, but you're not sure what to do with it, right? How can you increase revenue with it? How can you increase business efficiency, business performance? So this is where MDEC comes in and provides intervention either via workshops, via talent hackathons, such as this one, upskilling, certifications, and then on the demand side, we provide business matching, pilots, so on and so forth. So vertical ecosystems, like I mentioned, this is focused a bit more on IoT, BDA, and AI, and we are currently running this more towards agri-tech sector. So the agriculture has always been seen as one of the more left behind sectors, right? When you say agriculture, you think, oh, chili planting, cow rearing, chickens, fish, all those sort of things. So we decided, okay, if we can get the agriculture sector to digitalize, right, to adopt digital solutions, then this method can actually be scaled and replicated to other sectors much more easier. And true enough, to date, we have run over 15 pilot projects across sectors and have trained more than 1,500 individuals. So when we say trained here, it's because when we get the farmers to adopt IoT solutions, for example, we want to make sure that these farmers are trained and they know how to operate these IoT hardwares, because we can't expect the IoT companies to just implement the solutions and just let the farmers to their own devices, because that won't be digitalizing, that won't be upskilling, and that won't be sustainable. So we have trained over 1,500, which has resulted to 20% increment in productivity, income, and also operation cost for these farmers. Okay, so under scale up development, there's a few other teams as well. So we have the funding facilitation and investor relations team, the global market access team, FOX, which stands for Founders Center of Excellence, which is essentially a curated unicorn creation program, and also a scale up tech vertical team that looks at cloud and cybersecurity. Okay, so under the funding facilitation, we have 6 initiatives in place currently. So these initiatives are in place because when it comes to setting up your own business or running your own startup, you require a lot of funding. And with that, MDEC has come up with a plan for intervention purposes. So as you can see, we range from alternative funding, VC investor matching, venture debt, M&A programs, competition and grant programs, as well as Founders Grindstone. So the only different one here is Founders Grindstone. I think the rest are pretty much straightforward. So under Founders Grindstone, what we do is essentially that we provide a capability building program for founders, right? So we teach you how to prepare your pitch deck, how to storytell, how to assess your term sheet, right? And understanding legal orders as well. So, and under global market access, MDEC, we are in collaboration with 12 other partners in 12 countries. And as you can see, most of them are in Southeast Asia, but we are also touching countries in Middle East as well as South Asia. And we have over 240 partners across all these countries, right? And these partners range from channel partners, end customers, corporates, government, trade agencies, so on and so forth. So the reason why is because when we want to help you to expand beyond Malaysia, we want to make sure that you get connected to the right people. You meet up with the right partners that could actually provide you support and close the deal in terms of helping you set up your business overseas. Okay, moving on to the next one is FOX, as I mentioned earlier, stands for Founders Center of Excellence. So under this program, we have six curated interventions. It can be policy, business expansion, high value investments, consultancy, talent acquisition, as well as mentoring. So the reason why this is curated is because there's a lot of high valued companies or high valued startups in Malaysia. But when it comes to reaching that 1 billion valuation, 1 billion mark, right? There's always that last push that they need support with, they need help. So that's where AMDEC comes in and also help to break down the walls for them to reach that unicorn valuation as well. And under Scale Up Tech Vertical, as I mentioned, this team focuses a bit more on cloud and cybersecurity. So the reason why is because as more and more people start to adopt digital, cybersecurity is a very much needed aspect in the business, right? And the application of cybersecurity cuts across as well. So it can be in any sectors, it can be in any areas, and with this as well, the cloud services element comes in because when you look at, for example, AWS, when you look at Google Cloud Services, when you look at Microsoft Azure, these are all solutions needed when you are doing something that involves tech or digital, right? So we want to make sure that the ecosystem when it comes to cloud and cyber are moving at pace or even faster in terms to accommodate for the fast growing pace of the startup ecosystem, right? Okay, so IDE, Islamic Digital Economy, like I mentioned earlier, why Malaysia? So zooming out a bit on a global landscape, by 2030, it's estimated there will be 2.2 billion Muslims in the world, right? And 15 of the top Muslim countries represent the top 50 smartphone penetration. And the GDP per capita for Muslim countries are at 4.3%, right? And there's a growing investment interest when it comes to Islamic products. So as you can see on the right side, the market for the Islamic finance is at 2.9 trillion US dollars. And for halal products, it's at 1.2 trillion dollars. And for lifestyle, it's at 85 billion US dollars. So that's why we are focusing more on these areas to make sure that Malaysia can actually strengthen its positioning when it comes to the Islamic sector as well. Okay, so and to make this effort become something more impactful, we are actually collaborating with international partners such as Qatar Financial Center, Qatar FinTech Hub, and also local companies as well, such as HDC and also MTDC, to provide more opportunities for our local companies to grow and scale at a quicker pace. Okay, and with that ends my presentation. So I believe I understand that's a lot of information to digest, but I'm open to any questions should you guys have any. Oh, I see a lot of questions already.
Yes, we have quite a number of questions here. So let's show the first question here from Joshua. Hi, Bubin. What is the current challenge of the digital economy in Malaysia?
Okay, thanks, Joshua. So this is an interesting question, right? Because when it comes to challenges of digital economy in Malaysia, there's a lot of factors to be in mind. Because from MDEC's perspective, when we talk to the industry, some industries say it's about the cost, right? Sometimes the solutions are too expensive. Sometimes the solutions are too cheap, which makes it questionable. So there's a lot of concern there as well from the industry side. But the second part is also in terms of the uniqueness of the solution, right? So when we speak with corporates, for example, they tend to look at solutions outside of Malaysia. The reason why is because they can't find the solutions within Malaysia. And this is something that we are trying to address as well. So when we speak with companies, we see these ideas. We tell them, hey, this corporate is looking for this kind of solution. Do you have something similar or along the lines, right? So these startups will then actually think of ways, okay, how can I come up with this kind of solutions and make money out of it? And is there demand for it apart from that one corporate that wants it? So it spurs the innovation drive, right, within the ecosystem. But challenges of digital economy, other than that, it's also in terms of cybersecurity. That's always one of the issues because let's say, for example, in fintech, right? fintech involves a lot of data, right? Transaction data, user data, and these data are usually very very sensitive data because I'm sure you guys heard there's a lot of fraud, scams, hackings going on, and it all boils down to financial literacy and financial awareness, right? Because as much as digital is quickly moving at a very fast pace, digital literacy also needs to be moving at the same pace. So awareness and education would be one of the challenges as well.
All right, thanks so much for that, Mubin. I think we have another question here regarding Islamic fintech. If you have any advice for Islamic fintech startups specifically in Malaysia.
Okay, so well, advice. I'd have to ask you on what aspect, right? Are you looking in terms of your business model? Are you looking in terms of funding, in terms of market size? What exactly? But I'll just give you a blanket advice. Basically, Islamic fintech is a very hot sector, right? Because Malaysia itself has a very wide Muslim population, and the idea of Sharia compliant products has always been at the forefront of the industry. It seemed like food, right? When Muslims go to eat, we always look for halal, right? So when it comes to financial services, people always look at Sharia compliant or Islamic financial instruments. So the demand is there, but it depends also on what kind of product that you are doing. So let's say, for example, if you're looking at an Islamic e-wallet, what's the value proposition, right? If you're looking at Islamic buy now pay later, what's the value proposition? So the business model, if you're just starting out, your business model needs to be really clear because you need to remember as well, technology is agnostic, right? There's no such thing as Islam technology, Christian technology, Buddhism technology. There's no such thing. Technology is agnostic. So the Islamic component is comes down to the product of the instrument that you're bringing in. So you need to be a bit mindful in terms of choice of words because when it comes to Islamic, your the level of scrutiny on you can be a bit more uh, stronger lah.
All right, thank you for that, Mubin. So speaking of, all the different aspects, right? How about we zoom into funding specifically? Are there any funding assistance that's available from MDEC for fintech specifically?
Okay, so for fintech specifically, no. Just to be very clear, MDAC as an agency, we do not provide funds. That has not been our mandate. We do have a few grants available, but these grants are applicable more towards companies, the growth stage or scaling up stage companies. So in terms of early stage funding or fintech funding, we do collaborate with a few partners. For example, there's a grant called I-Connect, right? So they're a grant provided by ASM, Academic Science Malaysia, under for Islamic fintech. But for fintech specifically, generally, MDEC does not have. But if you're looking for funding facilitation to be connected to VCs and whatnot, then yes, MDEC does provide that support.
Great, thank you so much for that, Mubin. Moving on to our next question here from Chintat. How do we apply for Sharia compliance for a fintech product?
Okay, so for this one, you will need to engage with a Sharia advisor, right? So on our side, we have been working with a few of them. I'll just give you a few names. I'm not advocating any of them, no favoritism, but the ones that we have been working with are the likes of Mashrif, MasyRef, Tawafuk Consultancy, Tawafuk, and also Amani Advisors, Amanie. So you should be engaging with them as the Sharia advisors, and they will be able to actually validate you that your products are Sharia compliant.
Great, thanks so much for that. Hope that answers your question, Chintat. Moving on to our next question, I think everyone is very interested in this, especially since this is a hackathon. So, coming from yourself, Mubin, for someone who has so much experience in the ecosystem, what do you look for when it comes to a product or solution?
Okay, Wayne, am I allowed to be very honest?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is not something new, right? But the thing about the products, the startups in Malaysia, to be very frank, there's no originality, right? A lot of the ideas, the products are based are innovative products. But if you look back at the definition of innovation, it's actually refining an existing product in place, right? So Malaysia has, at least to my knowledge, I have not seen any new fresh product in the market that's never been seen anywhere in the world, right? There's always say that, oh, we're the first in Malaysia. First in Malaysia is good, but what happens when you want to scale, right? When you want to go to Indonesia, when you want to go to Thailand, then you have tens, 20 of competitors. So you get stuck being the local champion, but you can't scale beyond that. So in terms of criteria that we look for in products, it's basically in terms of product visibility, as well as what type of problem are you actually addressing. Because we have also met with a lot of founders who come out with product without any solid justification in terms of what problem are they solving, right? Because when you come up with a solution or a product, you want to make sure that that's something that people want. You want to make sure that this is something that people would want, people would buy. If you're doing subscription basis, this is something that people would subscribe on a long-term basis, not just 3 4 months and then they stop using, right? So the criteria wise, commercial viability is one, in terms of the market size is one, as well as the uniqueness of the business model itself. Because at the end of the day, if you're coming up with a solution that's not new to the market, that's fine. But what's the unique value proposition behind it? That's all.
Great. Thank you, Mubin. We have a few questions here specifically on MDEX initiatives as well, I believe. So
Mhm.
here's one. Who is eligible under EIG? Is it only Malaysians?
For now, yes, because under EIG, as shown earlier, so we have the corporate MDEC Innovation Exchange, which is the corporate innovation program, and so the vertical ecosystems. These initiatives are to help our local companies to grow quicker, right? To have access to corporates, to associations, to big SMEs to actually run pilots. Because especially when you're early stage startup and you want to knock on the doors of corporates, it can be a bit intimidating, or even you don't know who to reach out to, right? There can be so many people. You can try connecting them to them on LinkedIn, they might not reply. So that's where MDEC comes in and actually open the door for you.
Thank you, Mubin. Moving on to our next question as well on MDEC. What is MDEC's focus or direction in building up digital talents or skills among Malaysians?
Okay, so previous years, MDEC's focus has always been building talents for the GBS sector, right? The Global Business Services. So this could range from your digital marketing to what do you call it, to customer centers, so on and so forth. But as we accelerate together with the ecosystem, we realize that a lot of the industries are facing difficulties in terms of obtaining talent, right? So for the past few years, we have been driving a lot more specific talent programs, such as for data analytics, um, cybersecurity, back-end developers, front-end developers, specific subject matter experts in the areas of fintech, in the areas of regtech. So these are the kind of talents that we are currently looking at, because this is not something that we do on our own as well. This is something that we collaborate closely with the industry, get their input directly. So we engage with industry. We ask them, okay, what kind of talent pool do you require now? And it's not just from one company. So we have a whole pool of industry experts that we are engaging to get their feedback. What kind of talents do they require? And from there, we actually come up with modules to actually recruit or even train the talents that is needed by the industry.
Thank you, Mubin. Also, another question here. How is the current fintech landscape changing in Malaysia? Is there a specific area that is growing or declining?
So fintech in Malaysia is actually moving quite fast, if you were to ask me, because the reason being, every year we look forward to a fintech report by Fintech News Malaysia, and the report that was published back in 2020 showed that I think there was about 230 plus fintech companies, and the report that was published this year showed that there were 290 plus, so more or less about 60 new fintech companies in a year. And given the complexity and regulated space of fintech, 60 new companies in a year is actually quite an interesting news, right? And the reason for this is also because of there's a lot of new developments. So if you look at the payment sector, you have your buy now pay later, right, which is growing. But if you also look at the more regulated space, for example, digital banks, as well as IEOs, right, initial exchange offerings. So going back to digital banks, with the announcement of the licensing of the digital banks, the five licenses, it actually opens up a lot of opportunities for the fintech sector, because at the end of the day, the mandate of these digital banks is to serve the underserved or the unbanked, and the fintech products are meant to do the same as well. So it opens up a lot of collaboration opportunities for the fintech industry. And if you look for the sector, for example, IEO or even ECF and P2P, it provides a lot of avenues for people to fundraise in new ways, right? You no longer need to depend on investors or get loans from banks. You can actually crowdfund or even fundraise via peer-to-peer, right? So it's a very exciting time currently, and we foresee that next year and even the year next would be a very interesting period ahead as well.
Thank you, Mubin. So following up on that question, right, with the growth of fintech in Malaysia, do you think that Malaysia's regulations are able to keep up with this growth?
Okay, so this is a bit sensitive for to answer, right? But because on MDEC side, we work very, very closely with the regulators as well, specifically Bank Negara Malaysia as well as Securities Commission, right? So they are pushing the agenda as quick as they can. And MDEC on our side, we are supporting them as much as we can in terms of getting feedback from the industry, in terms of getting the concerns or even complaints to a certain extent from the industry. Because as much as we would like regulations to move as quick as the growth in fintech, sometimes it's not as straightforward as it seems, right? So the reason being is that there's a lot when it comes to making policies. Sorry, when it comes to making policies, there's a lot of factors in play, and you need to keep in mind that there's also the concern of economic prosperity, right? And then the safety of the people. So let's say, for example, if crypto wasn't regulated, right, and then a lot of people will be losing their money to some random coin that no one knows coming from where. So regulations are there as a safeguard, and given the nature of fintech itself, it is required, and it would take a bit of time to catch up, for the regulations to catch up with the growth in fintech. Because from our perspective, even in MDEC, we have met up with quite a number of companies that are doing or trying to do some business models that have never been done in Malaysia. And for regulators to pick that up could be not as fast as we'd like.
All right, thank you so much, Mubin. We have one more question here. Not really a question, but a request, whether participants can get a copy of the slides that you just presented.
Yep, sure. I will be sharing with Wayan after this. I think she will be able to share with you.
Yes, yes, definitely. And also, participants, you can also rewatch the entire webinar on the Amit platform as well if you would like to. Okay, I think participants, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A chat. I think I have one question on my end actually, Mubin. So what is your vision for fintech in Malaysia, or perhaps even the digital economy in Malaysia for the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Okay, so when it comes to digital economy in Malaysia, there's a lot of opportunities, right? And then because Malaysia, to be very frank with you, I love Malaysia. I feel that Malaysia is very rich and there's a lot of very smart people, as proven in the number of people who are joining the hackathon, right? There's a lot of people with great ideas that want to join. So there's a lot of room for growth when it comes to digital economy in Malaysia. And of course, from the government perspective, we can't do it on our own because government is an enabler, right? At the end of the day, we depend on the private sector to drive the economy forward as well. So, in terms of the growth of digital economy, I would say that in the next 5 to 10 years, I believe that, like I mentioned earlier, the contribution of digital economy to the GDP has been 22.6%. So, we're hoping within the next 5 years, we could reach at least 25%, right? So, if let's say a quarter of the GDP contribution comes from digital economy, that would be quite substantial already. And when it comes to fintech, for example, there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of growth, but personally, I would like to see a bit more innovative product, a bit more groundbreaking products as well.
Thank you so much for that, Mubin. And I think this comes to our end of the session today. Do you have any last words for all the hackathon participants here?
Okay, so for all the hackathon participants, we, on behalf of MDAC, we look forward to all of the ideas that you guys will be having. And I know that you guys are starting the hackathon this weekend. So all the best. Please do come up with some creative solutions. I'm sure you guys already have a few things in mind, but I wish you all the luck, and also hopefully you guys will be able to start your own companies if you haven't. And if you already have, feel free to reach out to me. Should you want to have a chat, if you want to just understand a bit more in terms of what MDEC could support you with, more than happy.
Great. Thank you so much for the session today, Mubin. The whole insightful session on how MDEC is at the forefront of accelerating Malaysia's digital economy, and also MDEC's active role in supporting our ecosystem. And I'm sure that all participants have greatly enjoyed the session. Thank you once again, Mubin, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. And to all the hackathon participants, we will see you again later for our third webinar, The Rise of Millennials and Gen Z Investors by Datin Azlin Osman Rani, Director of the Institute of Capital Market Research Malaysia at the Securities Commission. So the session later will be held at 3:30 p.m. So I'll see all of you later. Bye, everyone.